Yeah, I'm not answering that. Hello everybody, welcome back to a brand new episode of F123 Driver Career Mode here on the channel. Hope you're all having a great day. We have, for the first time this season, a brand new track on the calendar to take on. We are headed to Qatar. Unfortunately, we had some upgrades fail, 3 of them. So I had to get those back going, but we also got confirmation, chassis, durability, regulation changes coming in for next season. So we are going to be working on adapting parts here going to the end of the season. Alpine has made a huge lunge forward here, as you can see on the chart. But yeah, so big changes coming in those 2 departments going into next season. I'm not too concerned about where we leave AlphaTauri with, because it's starting to look more and more like we're not going to be with AlphaTauri coming into the next season there for season 2 in 2024. Fresh off the news, by the way, in real life, Daniel Ricciardo back on the grid starting in the next Grand Prix in Hungary, as he is replacing Nick de Vries. I feel bad for Nick de Vries. I like Nick de Vries quite a bit, although he hasn't done very well. I really hope that he can get maybe another opportunity again in Formula E, because he seemed to really fit in well over there and succeed, obviously. So I hope that he gets another opportunity over there. However, here we are in free practice 1. This is a sprint weekend, so yeah, it's going to be a bit of a lengthy one, but hopefully a fun one. My first laps here, I had no clue what I was doing. I was absolutely terrible, to be completely honest. Look at my first attempt at the hairpin. I was very quickly getting used to the very high speeds and sweeping kind of feeling of Qatar, so when I got into a hairpin, I was like, what the heck am I doing? But yeah, it took me quite a while. I did the race strategy program here, and it took me all 5 laps for the first time, and I invalidated every single one. I was way off. Slowly getting more and more comfortable though. By the time I came to the 5th lap, I was still invalidating it, but I was at least finding pace. So you can see though, we were way down the order in practice, dead last there, and I was a little bit concerned going into qualifying. But I'd gotten a little bit more comfortable, so I was hoping for the best. However, we had to change some engine parts coming into qualifying. And that means we will be taking a 25 place grid penalty. Yeah, 25. It's 3 different parts we changed on the car, which you're going to see me do it right here. I forgot to change it before qualifying. But the reason we're taking the grid penalty is just because we're exceeding the limit, not because we're doing it during qualifying. So that put me down to 1 opportunity to put a lap in qualifying, which was not ideal. I decided to wait for Oscar Piastri to go past me, so I kind of had a reference car to go off of, because now my back's against the wall. I honestly wasn't expecting to make it to Q2. I was really not quite sure what my expectation even was at this point in time, to be completely honest. But here we are coming through the hairpin. Look at this, you know, getting through there pretty well. Could have been a tad bit better there. But overall, not making any mistakes. It's crucial to just not invalidate my lap time. And so far, I was actually above the delta of getting into Q2. So I was pretty happy with that. Everything was looking really good. Feeling really good. Now going through the high-speed section, I was about half a second to the good of making it into Q2, but everybody's getting faster. But watch this. This is where I lose it all right here. I go so slow through that left-hander, just wasn't confident enough, and that basically ruined every chance I had in that one corner. We're going to head down this run straight away. Such a long stretch down towards the start-finish line, but it's not going to be enough. It's going to be 18th place here in qualifying for Qatar. Fortunately, though, we have that sprint race now. That sprint race, the grid penalty does not carry over to the sprint. It carries over into the Grand Prix. So, yeah, we're going to be starting the sprint from P18, but the GP, no matter what, dead last. Let's go see the grid for the sprint.
Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, and it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Russell, Sainz, Verstappen, Perez, Norris, Gasly, Ocon, Fernando Alonso, Stroll, Bottas, Hulkenberg, Albon, Oscar Piastri, Tsunoda, Magnussen, Golden Boy, Zhou, and Logan Sargent. And with preparations almost complete, let's head trackside for today's sprint.
Right then, we're ready to roll here now. As you can see, me briefly checking what everyone's doing. A lot of softs, a lot of mediums. Hamilton on pole. We're going to be getting ready to roll here.
The formation lap gets underway ahead of today's sprint. It's going to be interesting to see who gets pole position. cars take their positions on the grid, the final preparations have been made, and all that's left is for the drivers to deliver on track.
All right, Gary, you've been finding pace all weekend. Let's keep doing that tonight.
Yes, sir. Thanks for being patient with me this weekend, team, and let's have a good sprint. You hear myself on the radio there to the team. We are ready to go racing now. So from 18th place on the grid behind us, we got Zhou as we had major contact, or not contact, a run-in with him in Japan where he ran me off track and then I spun over the curbing. Not very happy with him, and we declined that phone call from him at the start of the episode there. But we're ready to roll now as Sargent right there behind us, 20th place on the grid. Lewis Hamilton set to lead the field to the green. We're lights out and racing. It's a terrible start there for Oscar Piastri. Magnussen with a great launch. Tsunoda not with a good one either. Bottas, so he's going to come cover me off as I kind of slow down. 3 wide up in front for the lead. It's Leclerc, Hamilton, as well as George Russell, and it's going to be Lewis Hamilton coming out on top of that battle. It looks like now you can see Leclerc on the softs trying to stick it around the outside. Not going to be enough. He at least, though, hangs on into second place over Russell. Sainz as well just behind. Then the Red Bulls of Verstappen and Perez. Not a great qualifying effort for them. They have some work to do. Alpine, we talked about it very briefly at the beginning of the episode. They've come into Qatar with some big gains. They were the second worst team in R&D earlier in the season, but they have made some gains to get back towards the top of the midfield, and we're already seeing Pierre Gasly just behind the pair of Red Bulls. Esteban Ocon not too far behind either, so we're going to wait and see how they do, of course, over the course of these 10 laps, and then, of course, the, I think, 29 laps in the Grand Prix, so we'll have to wait and see what happens. But myself, settling into P16 behind my teammate of Yuki Tsunoda. I did get past Valtteri Bottas, so I was pretty happy with the opening moments of this Grand Prix. Just trying to get into that rhythm and you know, feel the track and get confident, just like I was in my qualifying run here. And it was getting more and more confidence every lap I was doing. I was really happy with how the car was driving. Battle for second now on lap 2. Contact between Russell and Leclerc into turn 1. You saw the damage on Russell. He's got wing damage from that contact, and he's going to have to come into the pits at the end of the second lap, so we passed him. He's P16 and right to the bottom now as we're going to make a move up the inside. DRS now enabled here as we've only got one DRS zone here in Qatar, which is the very front straightaway that we're on, side by side with Tsunoda. He's not going to give it up easy. He's going to fight now through the left-hander as I continue around the outside. Now as we go up towards the next corner, we're going to have the preferred lane, but he is still not going to make it easy. He finds back there on the left side, nearly some contact there. Still side by side with our Japanese teammate of Yuki Tsunoda. Through we go, though, into 14th place. I kind of push him a little bit wide there now into the hairpin. Lunge up the inside of Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas. You can really lunge one up the inside into that corner. They kind of leave themselves pretty vulnerable now, especially when they're in a bit of a train of cars there. So we go past now the Haas and up into 13th place, and now my confidence was just lit up, but it wasn't long. Literally a couple seconds later, Hülkenberg fights back, and he's going to get back past us. So back down to 14th place we go, but then coming up to the hairpin again, lap 4, I'm going to do what I just did on him the last lap again, and here we go. The inside, this time we'll clear him easily, and now settle in behind his teammate of Kevin Magnussen. Really happy with what I'm feeling and seeing out of the pace in this car so far on this soft tire. I don't really care for being on softs. I like the mediums the most so far, but you can see Verstappen through into second now, and here comes Sergio Perez going up the inside of Charles Leclerc. That's going to be for third place. He locks up into turn 1, and now Leclerc, who did the damage, of course, to George Russell, well, he's gotten it back from Perez, so he would have to pit at the end of the lap. So now we were in this big train that was being led by Charles Leclerc. That brought me right to the back of Magnussen, past him easily. Up into 12th place we go, but Leclerc would eventually pit at the end of the lap, so that puts us up into P11. Now putting some pressure on Alex Albon and the Williams for 10th, and again, and the hairpin just going for the move here. The pace in this car really booming right now as we got yellow flags here on lap 7. Coming to lap 8 is Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. It's going to be night over for the Spanish driver there, the two-time world champion, and unfortunate for the Aston Martin now as we would continue on in P9, going for a point here on Lando Norris now as we drag race down into turn 1. We'll complete the pass into P8. We go, a huge slide on these final 2 laps. We save it, but the damage is done there briefly. Lando Norris gets past, so we start the final lap of this Grand Prix. Look it over towards the final turn area. George Russell's pulled off. It's night over for him as well. A retirement again for him, a mechanical failure. Lewis Hamilton would win the sprint here over Max Verstappen, Perez, Sainz, and Gasly. Ocon P5, P6. What an improvement for that team. We unfortunately come up just a few car lengths short of a point here in the sprint, but overall pretty happy with the pace. We just went from 18th to 9th. Obviously, that sprint finish gets us no points, it gets us driver of the day, but we still start the Grand Prix from the back with the 25 place grid penalty that we have. So it's unfortunate there. Stroll ends up P7, but yeah, that's going to wrap up the sprint, and we're going to head to the Grand Prix on Sunday. Let's go see the grid.
We're under the lights once again here in Qatar. Last year we took a year off due to a small footballing tournament that was being hosted, but it's all excitement on the track now. So we're back here in Losail, and this is the track map. 3.34 miles, 16 turns, and just one DRS zone out of turn 16. It's already a fast and flowing track after all. There's a good overtaking opportunity with DRS though, through the long straight and into turn 1. So with the race not far away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, edging out Sergio Perez, who lines up P2. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Sainz, Gasly, Stroll, Norris, Hulkenberg, Albon, Hamilton, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Bottas, Zhou, Sargent, Ocon, Oscar Piastri, Leclerc, Golden Boy, Russell, and Fernando Alonso rounds off the grid. It's almost time for those 5 red lights to go out then. Let's see who can prevail today. It's race day yet again, and joining me for a chat is Anthony Davidson. And our racers are certainly in for a rough day today. What will you be watching out for as they head into turn 1?
Well, the start of the race is always one of the most nerve-wracking parts. You have to hope that everyone is able to get off to a clean start, and this is possibly the trickiest part of the entire race. So many drivers in such a small space, and finding your braking point into turn 1 as well. It's a testament to the driver's skill that there aren't more incidents.
All right, then, let's get ready to roll here from Qatar. We're going to be starting on mediums this time, so mediums to hards. We're seeing a lot of drivers on soft, including the front row of Verstappen and Perez, as we are ready to roll. Hamilton there with that grid penalty puts him down to P9.
The formation lap gets underway, and every driver will be looking to settle in for the race ahead, making sure that their car is ready for the battle once the lights go out. As the cars come back towards the grid to line up for the start of the race, each driver will be wanting to get the best start they possibly can. And they'll be hoping to finish today's race on the podium, failing that, within the points.
All right, a great sprint last night. Let's drive through these guys again.
Yep, I agree. I think that's a great idea, Mark. You hear us briefly on the radio here as we are ready to roll for the Qatar Grand Prix now, as we have got some big names behind us there of Russell and Alonso, and they had those retirements in the sprint. Leclerc back here as well from the poor finish in the sprint after he had to box for wing damage after contact with Sergio Perez, who joins Verstappen on the front row. We are ready to roll here from Qatar's lights out. We're underway. It was a historic event last episode out in Suzuka where Hamilton picked up his 200th career podium here as we head down on this run towards turn 1. Verstappen well ahead. Stroll into second place. The Canadian takes over P2, and look at the battle right here. You got Carlos Sainz going at it with what appears to be Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. We talked about Alpine making those improvements, and they are showing it right now here. As you can see, Perez though settling in behind Stroll. Not at the start that, of course, Sergio would like to have. As you can see, Tsunoda battling right there with what Valtteri Bottas now as we head down into the hairpin. You see myself there in the bottom of the screen there going for a move. We are trying to move our way forwards now, as that was Zhou made a move on, and I kind of chopped his nose to close the door on him, made him back out of it after our moment in Japan. I didn't really want to do him any favors there. So we continue on and try to gain as many positions as we can in these opening moments, but only up to P16, so we only gained 2 positions there. But on Zhou, as well as another Ferrari-powered car, the actual Ferrari of Leclerc. How about this? Lap 2 already underway. Here goes Perez up the inside of Stroll. He kind of forces the issue there, makes him back out of it. So up into second he goes, and then a few moments later, you can see Sainz up the inside of the Canadian. Now, this is what I like to see, because Lance Stroll running well is not good for me, obviously, as I'm trying to get his ride for next season, as we have continued to impress Lawrence Stroll in this rookie season in Formula 1. And I personally would be completely okay with going to Aston Martin, because I don't want to be in a car that's a winning car already, you know, on every single week, but I would definitely like to be in a competitive car, as I think we've proven that we are worthy of getting a shot in a competitive car, because we have done well getting some good points finishes. We have consistently been faster than our teammate of Yuki Tsunoda all season, and obviously the option to go to a faster car is not with Red Bull, because Perez has done a good enough job that Red Bull is really probably not looking for a driver change. Gasly through into 4th there on the mediums over the softs of Stroll, as I myself now I'm on the back of Valtteri Bottas here for 15th place. As we got passed by Leclerc, we got some pressure from Russell, and Alonso, and I wouldn't expect to hold them off for very long, but you know, right now the car actually feels pretty quick. I don't think the position that we're in is very telling of what kind of car we have actually got here tonight, and obviously we expect this to happen right here. This is a battle that we cannot fight. Russell into 15th place, Piastri 14th. He's now been overtaken by Leclerc. The battle continues up front for 4th and 5th, and you can see Hülkenberg and Hamilton going at it as well. Hamilton through into 6th, Gasly back down to 5th, and here we were now. I followed George Russell right up to Oscar Piastri, as you can see us getting ready to go for a move. Esteban Ocon, by the way, just came into the pits, a very early pit stop for him, as I'm going to go around the outside of the Australian, nearly off track right there. That would have been, of course, probably an illegal overtake. Now as there goes the engine of Russell. He had a mechanical failure in the sprint, and now in the Grand Prix, one night later, again, he's out and no safety car from that. So we continue on. Lap 12, Verstappen pits from the lead for a new set of hard tires to take him to the end of this race. Sainz is going to follow him through as well. He's going from softs to mediums. Will there be enough pace in that car to maybe make a threat towards Red Bull? Unlikely. I myself not coming into the pits until the end of lap 14. Fernando Alonso just passed me, and look at this pit lane. It's a really interesting one. You haul the mail here, and you get around this corner as quick as you can. You have control all the way through here, right, of course, up to the line, and then, of course, I had no idea where the line was, but fortunately, I got it slowed up enough. So we're going to come in here and get on a set of hard. So, okay, first run. I was pretty happy with that. It felt like the long run, the car seemed to be getting a little bit better, a bit more advantage was kind of going my way when the tires were wearing. But yeah, definitely you can tell the tire wear is really high here tonight in Qatar. I think we're going to be okay. We only got to run half the race on the hards. We made it half the race basically on the mediums. There should be no reason we can't take these hards to the end without much issue. So yeah, settling into P17, but once the pit cycle goes through, hopefully 16th, 15th area, and you can see now we are going to go up a position over Zhou, who just pitted now. There's my teammate of Yuki Tsunoda exiting, so we're going to be P16 just behind Tsunoda, and now it's going to be game on between himself and I. Game on really all throughout this field. Here's Perez now going for a move up the inside of Sainz, who was able to get ahead of him through the pit cycle, but Perez not going to make it easy. I don't think Sainz is going to back out of this either, though. They continue side by side. Sainz looking for that first win of this season. His second win in his career hangs on, but it wouldn't be long until Perez, with that straight line speed, that DRS just cruises by him now. Lap 18 up in the second. Red Bull 1-2 once again. They are absolutely flying lately here in this career mode, as I actually exceed track limits there. Get away with it. Just a warning now, as I was all over the back of my teammate of Yuki Tsunoda here. We're going to go up the right side and go for the overtake. We're 3.5 seconds behind Alonso, so a lot of work to do from this point if we can complete the pass on Tsunoda, who just turned right into the side of me. Yuki just directly crashed into me.
I don't know what he was doing there.
And yeah, that's not the first time we've had a run-in with our teammate of Tsunoda this season. Look at this. I don't know what he was doing. He just turned into me. Somehow neither of us get damaged. but the fight's not over. Tsunoda comes back at me here up my right side, not going to make it easy at all. You see the radio message come on the screen as I force his hand. I said, you got to back out of it, but unfortunately he's going to have DRS as well, and he's going to lunge right past me there into turn 1. Not much I can do, so we're going to have to work on fighting back through and getting back into 15th place. Now, let's go through the grid here with Crofty and Brundle, as well as Ted Kravitz.
Red Bull dominance continues under the lights here tonight. A pretty calm night so far, but some fantastic racing, Martin.
Great racing. There you see Lewis through into 4th over Stroll now. Ted, what have you got for us?
Yeah, guys, I've got some silly season news. Aston Martin will begin to eye Piastri as well for a possible seat, possibly putting him in the fight with Stroll and Owen for the former's seat. McLaren are determined to keep him there, though. Rumours circulating about Prix possibly being kicked out of Red Bull and a blockbuster transfer into 2024. Well, we've got a lot of things to watch in the coming weeks. Also, I'm just hearing Leclerc has reported an engine issue, just like Singapore.
Well, there you have more of a, I guess, a silly season focused through the grid section of this episode. Now the fight continues with Tsunoda. Leclerc down to 14th. He's falling back. Now there's a lot of fights happening in front of us that's going to bring us towards that group of cars around the outside. If Yuki Tsunoda we go, he's going to fight back again. Not going to make it easy, but he settles in anyways, and through to 15th place we now officially put ourselves into. And I'm paying attention to the timing. We're not only closing in on Leclerc, who's got this engine issue, we're closing in on Alonso and that group of cars with the McLarens as well. Here's Hamilton again going for a pass on Stroll, who got back past him a few laps after through the grid, and then Stroll has that lock up there, puts him behind Hulkenberg, so he loses a few positions. Here I am into turn 1, lap 26, up the inside of Leclerc. I had put 3 seconds between myself and Tsunoda, and all of a sudden these tires were working. We were hauling the mail. We were closing in on Norris, Alonso, and Piastri as well, because I don't know what it was. The pace in this car with the worn tires was just significantly better than the cars in front of me, and all of a sudden I felt like I was one of the fastest cars on track. As you can see, the gap continuously coming down between myself and the cars in front, but only a couple of laps of racing to go. The tire warning light on at this point, 61% on the left front, but it should be okay. It's only 2 laps to go, so nothing to really be concerned about here. This is Lance Stroll with 2 laps to go, actually passing Hulkenberg back, going into 5th place. It's going to be his second best result of the year if he hangs on now. But look at this, coming to the final lap, it was Piastri, Norris in front of me. Alonso had gotten past Piastri and driven away, and now it's a McLaren tussle here, not for points. Ocon's into the pits again, coming to the final lap of this Grand Prix for whatever reason. He pitted earlier as well in the Grand Prix, like way earlier than anybody else here, going into turn 1 briefly, getting into the back of Piastri side by side in front of us. We're going to get a 2-for-1 special. The McLarens, too focused on fighting each other, have opened the door for myself to go through into P11. What a drive through the field late in the Grand Prix, 67% on that left front, and we were even closing in on the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. It's just not going to be enough time. Max Verstappen through the final turn here in Qatar. It's Perez who had spent the final part of the Grand Prix closing the gap, but not quite enough. Max Verstappen is going to win another one in Qatar and continue to increase his championship lead. Carlos Sainz is going to end up 3rd place over Hamilton in 4th. We're going to cross the line, P11 in Qatar. Absolutely beautiful drive right at the end of this thing. I couldn't ask for much more, to be completely honest. From 18th, 18th to P11, or did we start last? I think we did start last, didn't we? Because of course, of that grid penalty. Alonso, driver of the day.
And they take the checkered flag for the Qatar Grand Prix. It's a night they'll never forget here in the Sale. Tell me, Ant, how do they manage to achieve this win?
Well, time management probably played quite a large role in the outcome of this one. As ever, it's not just about speed, it's all about maintaining that speed consistently over a stint, over a race distance. So being able to keep up the lap times while still being smooth on the controls and gentle on the tyres, that's really where the race was won today.
Well, there we have it here, as we'll check out the podium celebrations, of course, with Max Verstappen on that top step. It was a lot of fun driving that track. It really does feel like a driver's racetrack. You know how you have certain tracks in all racing series that really stand out and show what a driver can do. You look at here in F1, I would say exactly what we just did in Qatar. You know, in NASCAR, you could say Darlington, one of the hardest tracks in the world, in my opinion. As you can see, Verstappen celebrating there on top of the podium now. So, I mean, Red Bull just continues to dominate. They are basically unbeatable. And unfortunately for Perez, I mean, a good day, a good night in second place, but that's still not enough to close the gap to Verstappen, as Perez did get the fastest lap point, but that 1 point isn't going to do much for him right now. So it's really looking like right now Verstappen is going to just quite simply run away with this championship. But there is still time in the season, so never say never. We'll take a look, of course, at these standings here. You can see 67 points the gap. Of course, Leclerc on down, they're already out of it, but Perez is going to need some help, as we unfortunately lose out big time to Stroll, who's now 10 points ahead of me as we continue that battle to get his seat, and I'm sure he's well aware of the situation as well. So yeah, it's going to be interesting as we're tied with Haas after they have a good night here in Qatar. That's going to wrap it up for me. I think we had Dakota in the next one. I'll see you guys then. Have a great day, everybody.